Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It looks like there's a few people still connecting to audio. But we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. Good morning and welcome to this Workforce Wednesday webinar. My name is Sarah Blaylock with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. I will be the moderator and technical support for today's webinar. We invite all attendees to participate throughout today's session by asking questions or posting comments in the Zoom chat. We ask that you refrain from unmuting yourself during the presentation today unless you're prompted to participate by the presenter and then during our Q&A. To be as accessible as possible, the webinar will be offering closed captioning, so feel free to turn that on using your Zoom toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Turn on live transcripts. All right. And then tomorrow you will receive a follow-up email. And we will have the slide deck and recording posted to Illinois WorkNet and the Illinois Workforce Academy website following today's webinar. I will also put the PDF on the slides in the chat momentarily. Tomorrow you will receive a follow-up email where you will have access to today's presentation and recording, and we will include a follow-up survey. We encourage you to participate in the follow-up survey to provide valuable feedback to the BRIOA Professional Development Committee. Now we would like to do some introductory polls to get us started with today's presentation. And Laura, if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll, which is where are you located in the state? All right, we have some people from Chicago. We have the northern region, central and southern represented today. A few more northern people. Okay, great. Well, welcome. All right. And then, Laura, if you can go to the next slide. The next poll is, which partner do you best represent? All right, we have Title I, Title II, Title III, Wagner Peiser, and some other local workforce boards. Perfect. All right. Some more Title I. Okay, great. All right, now I will hand it off to Laura Monteguedo. I hope, Laura, I didn't just murder your last name to start her presentation.
No worries. It's a difficult last name. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Monteguedo. I am joining you all today from Education Systems Center at Northern Illinois University to talk a little bit more about some of the work we did with a wide array of state agency partners to update the Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary. Sarah, I guess I didn't realize that you were doing all those polls, but we can just throw the poll up right now, because my first question for everyone is just going to be whether or not you are familiar, before you signed up for today's session, before anything you hear from me today, were you familiar with the Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary, or is this kind of the first time that you are hearing about it?
All right, and I'll launch that poll right now. Okay, so far.
Wow, yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's great to know. I am very excited that you all are here, and I am happy to share more with you about it. It looks like pretty much folks are not familiar with it, but you will be very soon. So the goals of today's webinar are to highlight the Career Pathways Dictionary and how it can be used. I want to show you around. Right now it's a website format. That's one of the big changes we just made. And then provide you with some background information about how the dictionary was developed, what the process was, what the updates were like, all of that. First, I want to start with a little opening activity. So this is an activity that I like to do just to kind of illustrate why it's important to have a dictionary. I find that defining different terms that even if we use them in, regular day-to-day life in our different roles that we have, when you think on the spot about how do I write down a definition for this term, I feel like it's a little more challenging than you would expect. So I want you to each take a piece of paper. You're not gonna have to like share these or read them with anyone. But I would like you to, in your own words, define career awareness and then career exploration. And I'll give you a minute to do that. If you are feeling so inclined, you think that those two things are really easy to define, take a crack at defining what a career pathway is. I'll give you just a quick minute, maybe another minute or so. All right, when you're finishing up, I guess the next piece, and you can either do this in the chat, or I think we have a small enough group that if anyone wants to share by unmuting themselves, that is good here. But I just want to know, how did it go? How do you feel about the definitions you came up with? Do you think that you're confident? Do you feel like if you compared with someone, their definition would probably be really similar? Do you think maybe there might be some differences between people? Did you find it easy? Did you find it hard? Any thoughts on that? The mouse has a little rolly thing in the middle, and I get a little overzealous sometimes. I find it difficult to put into words too, especially when you're thinking about, it's one of those things I feel a little bit like when you think about it, it immediately gets harder. When you're having a conversation, you feel confident in your ability to explain things, right? A lot of us work with career pathways pretty much in some capacity every day, but to actually think, how would I sit down and define this when it's on your mind feels a lot more difficult. So the part of the rationale behind this activity is to kind of illustrate you the difficulty of putting together a dictionary, and also why we need a dictionary. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to start off right from the big show, which is we're going to show you the dictionary. So the Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary was recently relaunched. It was initially created in 2018. We'll talk about the process for both the relaunch and the initial release. It used to be a big PDF document that was about 17 pages long. With this relaunch, one of the things that we did was we turned it into a standalone website with the goal of making it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more user-friendly. So what I'm going to do right now, and Sarah, if you can give me a thumbs up, a screen share or something just to confirm that we're seeing the correct thing. I'm going to walk you through the website. Okay, great. So here is the website for the dictionary. I will, before I walk through, I'm going to put the URL right in the chat. It's just pathwaysdictionary.org. We wanted to keep it simple so that it was easy to find, easy to remember. So when you get to the page, you'll see a little welcome message about the dictionary. And then just the terms that are in the dictionary are listed all right here in alphabetical order. We have a little bit of background information on the side. So if you're sharing this with someone who's never seen the dictionary before, a little bit of an intro language as to where this came from, what the purpose of it is. What I'm going to do now is just walk through kind of some of the features, some of the different definitions. So you'll see all the definitions in the dictionary are listed alphabetically right on the home page. So I'm going to start just by pulling up one. So I'm going to begin with competency-based education. This is a term that we added to the dictionary. It wasn't in the original dictionary, but there was an increasing amount of work going on related to competency-based education in both the post-secondary spheres at the K-12 level. So we decided it would be worthwhile to add it. One of the things that this definition helps highlight is that there are varying levels of, I guess, formality with the definitions and the terms that we put in. So every term is kind of laid out the same way, where we have a definition and then either a note or a citation. So some of the definitions you'll see are more formal. They come from legislation or specific state policy. And some of them are terms that the group we worked with, which was comprised of representatives from all of the relevant state agencies. We'll talk later about exactly who that is. But some of these definitions were determined by that group to be important, and kind of defined by that group collectively as what reflected the spirit of the term best. So this is one where we work with the group and we sort of combine some language that the Community College Board had been using, as well as some language that ISB had been using, to come up with a definition that captured the spirit of the term. A lot of the definitions will also have resources linked to it. So this is another thing that we thought was beneficial of moving to this web-based format, is that we could connect with resources. So in this case, this resource is a document that Illinois State Board of Education has put together with a little bit more detail about how they view competency-based education. So that is one example. To go back to the homepage, I always like to just click this little bar right up here. You could also hit the back button. And then we're back to the homepage with the terms. You'll see you can also jump around alphabetically. So say the next term you wanted to look at was farther down, you could just jump to it. So I'm going to take us to pre-apprenticeship as kind of our next example. So pre-apprenticeship, jump right down to the bottom of the page. We'll click it here. The definition here for pre-apprenticeship listed right on top. You'll see this one is one that does have a citation. So this definition that we incorporated into the dictionary came from some work that was done by the pre-apprenticeship work group in the apprenticeship committee for the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board. So we've cited that here, and actually the work group put together a more thorough document, kind of going into the definitions of each of these different elements that are listed. So we've also linked the resource. So if you click on this, it will show you right here. Here is the resource that was approved by that group that defines each of these core elements a little bit more deeply. So this is an example of a spot, again, where we've linked maybe a printable document or another resource that looks helpful, to make it really, we want it to be a hub for definitions, but also helpful resources. So this is one way we decided to kind of take that next step with this format. Another thing that we decided to incorporate was categories. And this is one where we always can add categories if things come up. So right now, the two categories that we added right off the bat are early college and work-based learning. So if you click on a category, right, I'll click on early college. It will bring up all of the terms that are tagged to be associated with that category. So we'll see here, right, we have all of these different terms in the dictionary. If I click on one of them, which I'll click on early college credit, it will take us to that definition. You'll see here another feature of having it on the web is that if there are other terms that are included in the dictionary, in the definition, it will link to those as well. So you don't need to go back to the homepage. You can literally just click through, oh, I want to know what articulated credit is, or I want to know what career pathways are defined as. You can take a look at that just by clicking through. We've also added this little handy tool. We got some feedback, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, about people wanting a little more clarity on what these different types of early college credit are and how they're differentiated from each other. So we added a little helpful chart And then this term is an example of one that is defined in legislation. So this definition for early college credit came from the Post-Secondary and Workforce Readiness Act. So we've cited that right here. And then if you wanted to go find it in the legislation and be really detail oriented, you could actually just click right here and it would take you to the text of the Post-Secondary and Workforce Readiness Act. So that's one example. We'll do one more example before I point out just a couple other features. So another example, again, with the categories is work-based learning. Quite a few definitions here that are tagged as related to work-based learning. So again, you can click through any of them from this list. I actually am going to take us to the work-based learning definition more specifically. This is one that was kind of, I feel like it's a little bit more robust of a definition, which makes sense because it's a pretty big piece of Illinois career pathways. So the definition is listed here. We also have some implementation guidance. So this is something that we've added on to some of the definitions as well. So in the case of work-based learning, we're referencing Illinois' work-based learning continuum, which is something that's been around for a while and is pretty, well developed, but the graphic we've included is updated a little bit from what was previously being used. One of the reasons for the updates is to reflect more how individuals can move either direction on that continuum, right? If they complete career exploration or career development experience and they decide that they want to explore something different, they can go back. So that is another piece there. And then this definition is one where we took some definitional elements from different pieces of legislation, right? So we have Perkins legislation reference. We also have, I think it's it's a PWR Act again. So we have a couple components of legislation connected there as well. And then if we go back, there's just a few more things, but we're kind of wrapping up the demo part. A few more things. We wanted to keep it relatively simple, to keep it user-friendly, so there's not too many features. One of the nice things is that we can always update this. So if you are looking at this and you think it would be really helpful to have a category on, I don't know, adult education, you can contact us with a suggestion or an edit that you think would be helpful, and we're more able than we were in the past with the PDF document to make those edits as, best practices reflect, as new terms come up being more relevant to Illinois career pathways, we can make changes. And then if you want to sign up for emails so that if we do make any changes, you're notified of those, you can also do that down here. The last thing on the website that I want to show you is our about page. So this is where you'll find a lot of the details about the background on why we have a career pathways dictionary, how it connects to state policy. We'll touch on some of this in our presentation today, but if you want all the details, this is the best place to go. So we have listed out some why, where do career pathways show up in Illinois policy, and why do we need a career pathways dictionary? One of the benefits of this, similar to the definitional elements, is that any legislation or policies we reference are linked within the website. So say you get to this part about the Dual Credit Quality Act and you want to look at the model partnership agreement, you could just click right there and it would take you to it. Or you want to see the college and career readiness indicator, you'll click on that, it'll take you right to it. So that is a little bit more about this about page. And then the last piece of the about page is it includes acknowledgements. So this first little group of logos is everyone that was involved in the updates that we just made and launched in September. So you'll see pretty much all the relevant state agencies, IBHE, ICCB, DCEO, ISB, IDES, and then some additional partners who were involved in the original development of the Career Pathways Dictionary back in 2018. And then these all link to their individual websites. So say you're here and you want to see, something specific about career pathways on the DCEO website or the IDES website, you can just click on those and it will take you to their websites. So that is it for the walkthrough. While I'm transitioning back to the slides, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. Right here. Okay. All right. So I've shown you the website. I've talked a little bit about kind of why we need a dictionary, but where did it come from? Why do we have it? Over the last 10 years, career pathways have been coming up in more and more pieces of state policy as a key strategy for education and workforce development. So there's just been more work that's been going on in the field. So these are some of the places where career pathways show up. So the Post-Secondary and Workforce Readiness Act develops the state's college and career pathway endorsement, as well as the PACE framework. You'll see career pathways in the state's economic development plan. You'll see them related to strategic dual credit in the dual credit policy that exists in the state. They're also components of the college and career readiness indicator. So some of those career readiness pieces are related to different career pathways. And then in the state's general approach to CTE. So it's pretty much seated throughout all of these different aspects. Again, similar to how and why we had so many state agencies represented in the development of the dictionary is because pretty much all of those entities are working in some way related to career pathways. So because of that, there was kind of a notice that folks needed common definitions for things, right? Practitioners in education, workforce development, we're all doing different career pathways work, and we're starting to get involved in career pathways work more deeply. And there was nothing really like that around. So in order to make sure that everyone in the state that's working on these efforts is aligned, the need for the dictionary was arisen. So this is kind of how the Pathways Dictionary was developed over time. So first thing that happened was actually there was some work already underway to develop a definition for career pathways specifically. Part of the reason that I threw career pathways into that opening activity was because this is actually by far the biggest, longest definition in the dictionary. It's the only definition that was formally adopted and ratified by each state agency involved. So we couldn't change that because it was done through such a formal process, but it's definitely the biggest definition we have in here. From that work to develop that unified career pathways definition, basically agencies and partners took some steps to take it further and develop a set of related terms and definitions, leading to the publication of the original Career Pathways Dictionary in 2018. Like I said, it was a PDF document that was quite long. In 2022, 2023, we brought back together a group of interagency representatives to revisit the dictionary for a couple of reasons. One of which, it just had been a while, right? 5 years is a lot of time for, developing pathways policy, pathways programs. And so we wanted to look at it and see, are there places where maybe some of these terms need a little updating? Maybe they're no longer viewed in the same way in the field. Maybe best practices are evolving. So how can we update this to make sure that it is staying a relevant, helpful resource for everyone? So we went through that process, and then in September, we relaunched the Career Pathways Dictionary as this website that I'm sharing with you all today. So it's been quite a long road to get here, but all of the work that's been put into the dictionary, I think, really emphasizes a couple of things. One, just the importance of being aligned on these definitions across the state. And also just that, we want to make sure that everyone has the most up-to-date definitions for things and pieces. And getting us to this point of having a website, I think, really helps and enables us to do so in a way that's pretty exciting and pretty one of a kind. One of the things that we did when we were updating the dictionary is we did a survey. So we sent this out to a wide range of stakeholders, just to kind of assess were people familiar with the dictionary? If they were, had they used it? How had they used it? So that we could take some of the themes that emerged and incorporate those into the updates that we made. So this is something that we've already kind of obviously incorporated into this website version. But I think it's helpful just to know that we did, seek feedback from practitioners in the field is to the updates that we made and how we could make sure that this was a useful tool for everyone and relevant to their work. Take a sip of water. So we did the survey. That was kind of the first step in the updates. We brought together this group. You can see there everyone that was involved. Some of the updates that we made. So I've already showed you some of this, but we added terms. We updated some of the definitions that best practices had changed, or maybe just the way those things were viewed or used in the field had changed. We also embedded resources throughout, and this is something, I think this is one of the pieces that we really hope to continue to do over time, is embed more resources as we encounter them or as they come up. So this is another thing where maybe if you look at a term and hey, I have this really helpful resource that relates to this term, feel free to share that with us. We want to make sure that this is a place where folks can find as much helpful information as possible when they're looking for clarification or guidance on a particular component of career pathways. We also added this category feature. Again, I would say this is another piece that we want to grow over time, right? It's in making it a hub, right? We really want to have the most relevant resources, also the most relevant ways to show, hey, this is helpful for you, right? If you think maybe it would be helpful for folks in workforce development to know that there are terms in this dictionary that relate to adult education, and maybe we should create a category for that. We would love to hear about what you think would be a helpful category, what terms you would include in that category, because we want to make this as approachable for all the relevant people. And then I already showed you those options to sign up for updates. And also just a little easier to share, right, than a 17-page PDF document. You can email it to folks that you're working with. You can embed it in presentations. You can send it out with materials from sessions. So we really want folks to be sharing this. If you think it's helpful, please feel free to share it. Kind of our next steps with the dictionary are to share it extensively throughout Illinois. So some of the ways that we are planning to do this are by updating agency websites. The original dictionary was developed quite a long time ago and has been around since 2015. So this is, or since 2018. So this is a process, right? We have several agencies that were involved, and they had that original dictionary all over. So we're constantly working to make sure that we're finding any references to the original dictionary and updating them on websites, sharing them through word of mouth, sharing them at professional development opportunities, and also the state agency partners involved. A lot of them are working to tie the dictionary to funding, so incorporating the definitions that are in the dictionary in some of the funding related things that they're doing. What you can do is share it with others, incorporate it into your work as much as you can. Here are some of the examples that have come up in our conversations or some of the feedback that we've received. But we would love to hear, and I think the next piece of my presentation is I would love to hear, if you're looking at this and you have ideas. I know the first question, how have you used the dictionary? Pretty much all of you are new to the dictionary, so you may not have used it yet. But if you're looking at this and you're saying, this looks really helpful, I think that I can use this, would love to hear more. And, I have quite a bit of time. So would love to hear more about ways you think you could use this, or if there are ways that you think, if we just had a little bit more support, or maybe, a category added, things that you think would help you use this or you would like to see, we would love to hear that as well. And you can also throw things in the chat if you have ideas about how you might be able to use this. That's kind of the last. I know I have more to bookmark the website. Ooh, bookmarking it is a great idea. I love bookmarking helpful resources. And I think that example of using it when you're writing a plan for workforce development is a great example of, you know, how we hope people use the dictionary and incorporate it into their work.
Veronica put in the chat, looks great, but I won't have suggestions until I start using it more, exclamation point.
Very reasonable, which is why we incorporated that feature at the bottom. So if you do think of suggestions, I've already mentioned a couple times the two things where I hope for most suggestions is if there are any resources that you think we could connect to the dictionary, or any categories that you think would be helpful to add, and what kind of terms you would put in those categories. Those are both two specific things. I mean, obviously we are open to hearing about any other updates, but those are two areas where I know personally I am very hungry to hear more feedback on things like adding categories or tagging resources, because I personally feel like those are some of the best ways that we can make this a really innovative, resourceful hub for people, and make it not only user-friendly, but also a more practical resource that people will actually use, is by connecting them to those different things. So I think it's helpful. And I mean, I know even just training purposes too is another great way to use the dictionary. I pulled it up with one of our Ed Pioneer fellows a couple weeks ago. So WIOA is referenced in some of these definitions. The official legislative title of WIOA is just a little wonky. So it doesn't just say WIOA. It's whatever the title of the piece of legislation is, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a little wonky. But we did reference WIOA quite a bit in our conversations in pulling things from definitions. I was talking about using it for training. Yeah, I've shared it with some of our new fellows. I think one of the nice things about using it for training purposes too is sometimes when there are terms, as we develop with the opening, there are some places where I think we're so used to using terms that when we actually go to try and explain it, it's more difficult. I think career pathways to me is the one that is a good example. I think you're so used to talking about it that when you actually try to explain it to someone who may be new to some of the work we do that's very specific, it can be hard to actually put into words. So I think having this as a resource even for that purpose is also nice. And Sarah, I apologize. I tried to beef it up, but I feel like I'm pretty short.
No, I mean, this was all great information. And like Veronica said, this may be information that people need to use before they can really get feedback. And you've given a great tutorial on how to do that. So I'll just ask if anybody has any final questions, thoughts, you want to put it in the chat or come off mute. And if not, we can give you back some time in your day. You'll also receive this recording, as I said at the beginning, in an email tomorrow. And this will be posted to WorkNet and the Illinois Workforce Academy as well.
Thank all of you for joining us. We are excited about any chance to share the dictionary with more people, especially folks who have not used it before. So I'm grateful for all of you who are able to join us.
Okay. Oh, a lot of praise in the chat, Laura. So you and your team should be excited.
I'm glad people are excited to use it.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.